Hello, movers and shakers. Welcome to Make Things Happen with Diana Pagano. That's me. I came from struggle, living life on survival mode all the time. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American entrepreneur from San Diego. I grew up in a very unstable environment and later found myself in my young adult life living in that same vicious cycle. And I want you to know that life doesn't have to be this way. Life is meant to be so much more than settling for a mediocre life. I became obsessed with learning about the human mind and what makes some people so successful while other people struggle. My life changed when I learned the power of your mindset and how it applies to every part of your life. I'm a mother to 4 beautiful blessings and a wife to a man who dreams as big as I do. I'm a business leader, speaker, and author. I have made it my life's mission to share all the tools and techniques that have changed my life because I know that they will for you too. All your hopes and dreams really lie in the how. How are you making things happen, and are they in the fashion that your goals need them to be? Are you ready to stop dreaming for what could be and turn those dreams into reality? I thought so. Well, get ready to live life on your terms. It's go time. Hi, movers and shakers. Welcome to Make Things Happen with Diana Pagano. That's me. I'm your host, and we are going to have some amazing episodes that are going to be coming your way. A little bit about myself. I'm the Executive Vice President of Interpreters and Translators, Inc. here in Connecticut. I'm also an inspirational speaker. I am the founder of Make Things Happen movement. I'm a mother to 4 beautiful blessings and a wife to a crazy man that dreams as big as I do. And we're going to get into it. Today's topic is a lot about my story and why I chose the first topic to be about the power of not now. I started this podcast back in 2020. I'll let that sink in for a minute. When the pandemic hit, I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to make this happen and I was so excited about it. And then I did like 1 episode and a teaser and I realized, holy cow, am I in over my head? Not only was I looking to be consistent and bring something of value to all of you, and really share the things that have helped me in my journey. My life wasn't as beautiful as it is today. Once upon a time, even as a single mother, living in Arizona with 2 beautiful kids, an entrepreneur struggling and maybe on the outside being very successful in real estate. But then I felt really broken inside. I didn't understand how some people struggle while other people succeed. And that's where Make Things Happen is all about. In my journey, I learned the entire value, the impact of how you make things happen has on your life. We're all making things happen, but it's not so much make things happen, it's how are you making things happen? There is a thing called make things happen, and then you lose yourself in the process. Make things happen, I'm making things happen, but who am I in the end, right? I'm climbing this mountain, I get to where I'm going, and then what? And that's where Make Things Happen podcast had started. It's about all things make things happen. It's how are you showing up in your personal life? How are you showing up in your business life? It all matters, and that you are able to achieve the results that you're looking for and feel good at the end of the day, not feel like you overworked yourself, not feel like you're so stressed, but your bank account looks good. And that was me. There was struggles. I didn't know even how I was going to pay my mortgage. I had no money in my bank account. And there was times I had more than enough to pay 6 months worth of my mortgage. But I was broken inside because I was going on to the next thing, and losing myself in the process. And that's why sharing these tools and strategies that I have cultivated and even studied human behavior and the coaching I've done and have seen real transformation on other people has made an absolute impact that I'm so excited to share that with you. And the reason the power of not now is my first episode is because that's exactly where I was when COVID hit. I decided to hit the ground running. And for you overachievers, you know what I'm talking about. Being a mover and a shaker is all good, but when you can be a mover and a shaker and still feel at peace with your life and not feel that you're sacrificing your soul for that big ticket that you're after, or sacrificing your family, or being at work and feeling like guilty because you're not at home, or being at home and feeling guilty because you're not at your business. I know firsthand what that feels like. And I also know when I started to do the things that I added into my life, everything changed. Everything changed. And so when I started this podcast, I had to pause. I had to say, not now. Although people were messaging me, oh my gosh, that first episode was amazing. It's been just nudging at my heart this entire time. And the journey has been nothing short of very purposeful. And I wasn't always living with intention. I wasn't always just throwing myself out there to just say yes to all the things that were calling my name. The next opportunity, everything. It was just, yes, you need this. Yes, I want to do this. Yes, everything was yes, yes, yes. And it didn't. That's when I crashed and burned. So I remember when COVID hit, when the pandemic hit in 2020, starting this podcast in my house. And I'm like, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be awesome. And then I realized, holy cow, I'm biting more than I could chew. Because I'm either going to go all in or I'm not going to go in. And you've seen people, and even if it might be you, that have started something, right? Have you ever seen someone or maybe yourself where you start something and then you're not consistent and you just forget about it? Sometimes there's reasons that you're just procrastinating. Maybe you're pushing that thing off. So I'm not saying everything needs to be pushed off in your life. There are things that you shouldn't be putting on hold and that you should show up and be consistent. For me, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that when I launched this podcast, that I will absolutely bring the consistency that it requires. It's almost like that commitment, right, guys? I remember being a single mom in real estate in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'll never forget. People said, man, you have such a successful business. You have great qualities. And why are you single? Like, what's the matter? Why don't I said single? Like I'm a happily single mom. I am so focused on my business. I'm so focused on my children that I don't have time for a guy right now. But I knew, don't get it twisted, I knew that eventually I would be available to that future husband that I knew that I was meant to have. And I always knew that I was going to have 2 additional kids. I even said it. I even said 2 boys a year or 2 apart. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened, a year and 4 months apart. And then I realized, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Be careful what you wish for. But I genuinely was very intentional. I didn't realize it was going to happen back then. I just said, being in my 30s, I'm going to get remarried. I'm going to have 2 boys back to back, a year or 2 apart. I shared this story because I remember knowing that what you commit to, you have to show up. I already know that, right? I knew that. And oftentimes, even just commitments has been a thing for me. And that's something that I had to deal with, is the commitment. But I also knew that being in a relationship takes work. And I knew that back then. It doesn't mean it takes bad work. Heck, doing my nails takes work. Doing my hair takes work. You think I like to sit in a freaking chair when I got to do my roots? No, but I got to do it. I don't want to have grays. Even when I'm 90 years old, I'll be dyeing my hair. So, but that takes work, right? And so being in a relationship, when people said you have this beautiful life and you have all your things going supposedly your way and you're successful and this and that, why aren't you in a relationship? And so for me, it was never like, I didn't take insult to that. I was like, I'm beautiful right now. I'm focused on my business. I'm focused on my children. I'm doing my thing. Eventually, when I meet someone, it's going to be the added benefit in my already beautiful life. But I knew that took the time and energy, and it's not bad energy. It just wasn't the right timing for me. That I feel like life will give you things when you're ready for them. And when you're not ready for that, there is an internal conflict. And it's not a bad conflict. If I'm not ready for it, what's life going to bring me? Things that are going to mimic that I'm not ready for that. Life is going to bring you what you're open to, what you're ready for. And so that kind of reminds me of this podcast when I was really excited to do this and I realized, holy cow, I'm biting off more than I can chew, which really leads me to this episode. I don't want anyone to feel that you start something, you can't finish it, or that you should put it off. There's things that people shouldn't be putting things off that are very important. It's all about those overachievers that want to take on more than you can bite off. That's what I believe wholeheartedly is something that will absolutely impact your peace. Well, I don't care if it's your breathing, your stress. And I always wanted to do it all. I've been living in this survival mode mentality since I was a child. It was always like that next thing, or who do I need to take care of, or this or that and the other. And everybody was telling me. For me, it was not biting off more than I could chew because I've been there. And so although I've created new habits, you guys, those habits that I've done in the past tend to sometimes creep up on you. And that's exactly what was happening. It's like, this is exciting. I'm going to do this podcast. And I was so excited. And I don't regret pausing because I understood the power of not now. And I understood where I've been. It's almost like you know where you've been. And when you start seeing signs of those signals of like, oh my gosh, this feels familiar. That's how I felt. I felt like, oh my gosh, this feels familiar. When I was spreading myself too thin. I was taking on way more than I could. And I'm telling you, I've gone through those struggles. I've gone through being so broken. I'm running around with my head cut off, breaking down, having complete breakthrough moments in my real estate career as a single mom, running around like crazy. My bank account looked good. Other times, as I mentioned before, I didn't even know how I was going to pay my mortgage. But I understood that when you're doing too much, you're going to break. You're not Superman. And I felt like I was Superwoman. I can take this on. I can take that on. I can take this on. And people are like, just do your podcast. You can do. And it's like, no. And it's like almost more, I kind of resisted even more. Like, no one's going to tell me when I should start something. It needs to feel right for you. Only you know what you need to pause, right? And sometimes saying no to the things in your life and the people in your life that you need to say no to. As I mentioned many times in a lot of, I don't know if you follow me on social media, and for those of you that don't know me, then I'm going to say it here, is that sometimes you have to say no to the people that you care about. And as a mom, I mean, my kids, prime example, I have 4 kids, 2 in their 20s and 2 little guys that, man, I love them so much. I'm so in love with them. I'm obsessed with them. But man, they could be little terrors if you let them. And when you communicate that mommy has to take care of mommy has to do what mommy has to do to be a better mommy for you, you would be surprised at just speaking to your children in a very straightforward, transparency way. They understand more than you think. Right? Of just explaining to them that this is what I'm doing. Even like at bedtime, my husband and I take turns and I have to work on my book sometimes or review my chapters. I have homework from my brand manager. I told him the other day, mommy has homework, but why can't you put us to bed? And I'm like, no. And the old Diana was like, oh yeah, I want to coddle my kids and all the things. And it's fine to do that. My kids will always come first in many ways. However, within reason. And it's okay to say no to the things that aren't right for you in this season. Right? In this season. And if it means you're going to make somebody mad, then so be it. But I've lived my entire life, for the most part, on other people's expectations or yes to that and yes to this, but not necessarily what was right for me. Although doing the podcast in 2020 was exciting for me. What was it going to do? What was I going to sacrifice? My peace, my stress, because I was already busy with other projects. And let me tell you, the planning of the podcast, it didn't stop just because I paused it, right? I ended up finishing my book, which I'm so excited about, and hopefully discuss that with you guys later. But there's been the business that we grew, and I joined ITI over 8 years ago now, and we've grown 4 times our size plus. And being a part of that journey, being an inspirational speaker, the journey has been absolutely amazing in many ways. And even then, I remember telling my team when they were booking me on other people's podcasts, this is like a dream back 10 years ago. But I remember saying, my gosh, I look at my calendar and I'm like, you're booking me for all these other people's podcasts, which is cool. I want to do this. But man, I was already starting to get overwhelmed. So being able to put boundaries, and what does that look like? And not spreading yourself too thin, I don't believe is the true essence of being happy, of making things happen. You're not going to make things happen in your business, but then sacrificing your personal life. You're not going to make things happen with your family, but then neglecting your business that pays the bills or gets you to where you want to get to, right? Something's going to get sacrificed. It's all about understanding what's important for you right now. I see a coach, and I encourage all of you to be seeing a coach because it's so impactful. And my coach told me something recently. He said the you and the I needs to be a part of the equation. The you is what's urgent, and the I is what's important. And for me, and I don't know about you, maybe some of you as well, everything's urgent, everything's important, everything has to happen now. Right? Because that's how we're going to make things happen. And while I still stand by that, a lot of things are urgent, a lot of things are important. You got to prioritize. And one of the things that I've done just habitually is I'm constantly prioritizing in my life, in my head. So I feel like there's a burner, right? There's always a burner in my life, professionally, personally. There's always a burner. You know, there's things in the front burner, there's things in the middle burner, there's things in the back burner. So the podcast has never been off the burner. It's been on the burner. It just was moved from the front burner to the back burner, then the middle burner. And now we're here making things happen with all of you and bringing you guys some things that really has absolutely transformed my life, that has allowed me to make things happen on a whole nother level, a whole nother scale than ever before. And it's not to be perfect. Your journey isn't always going to look perfect. It may not feel perfect, but it's how it's shaping you. It's what it's building you to be. Like, what emotions are you going through? And when the storm hits, how are you responding to that? Because I remember when the storm hit, I would crumble. And when I would crumble, it showed in my bank account. When I would look at the storm and say, okay, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to hold on like a freaking roller coaster. I'm going to put on, I got my bulletproof to rejection, whatever life is going to bring to me. I'm going to hold on. But I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's huge. I didn't know that before. The light at the end of the tunnel sometimes was dark. I didn't even know there was light at the end of the tunnel. I just started to have this inner dialogue, imagining that they were going to say no to me, imagining that I was going to be living the same reality that my parents did when I was little. And I was raised, right, learning that life had to be hard, good, better, and different. My parents did the best they could, but they got in their own way, right? And so I started to live that reality in my 20s as a single mom. I was making things happen. I was like, good success was happening. And then I dipped, and then I fell on my face. And then success would happen, and then I dipped and I fell on my face. And now I'm not saying that life isn't going to throw you challenges. We all have sometimes ups and downs. I mean, look at the global, like a recession. Anytime there's a recession, there's always an up. In the 70s, I used to work for Remax All-Stars, for example, the big balloon, nobody sells more real estate. Remax was founded in a recession in the 70s. So don't get it twisted. Make Things Happen podcast. What are you teaching us, Diana, that life is going to be kumbaya all the time? No. But it's how you show up when challenges arise, right? When they arrive. It doesn't mean that things are going to go your way every time. I did all the things, to make things happen. I set my intention and all the things. It's just, how are you showing up? What are the tools in your toolkit that you're going to now remember to get when the going gets tough? So I just wanted to share a little bit about my story so you can understand where the Make Things Happen with Diana Pagano was born from. And it's really genuinely from my own journey, the things that I changed in my life that absolutely made an impact for me. And I know they're going to make an impact for you. When I started with Power of Not Now, it was such an essential part of this journey of the podcast. And I wanted to share this with all of you guys because when you're not practicing the power of not now on some of the things, you know what's right for you. Only you can decide what is the things in your lives, what are the not nows for you, right? If you can evaluate what are those not nows for you, because when you sacrifice your mental health, then you're getting into some, scary waters at that point. When you don't feel right mentally, you're not going to be able to show up for the things that matter in your lives. And so for me, if I took on this podcast and I didn't practice the power of not now, and paused it, what would that have done to me? Maybe produce some great content, right? But then what else am I sacrificing that might produce some amazing content for you guys, but it wouldn't be my authentic self and I would be showing up a bit more stressed. And so those are the things that I've learned because I've been there, that I've taken off way too much more than I can chew. And then it just affects me, it creates stress. And I just chose years ago that I will not live my life like that any longer for anybody. And I don't care who has an issue with that you're prioritizing your mental health, that you're taking the time to take care of you and saying not now, whatever that is. Maybe the not now is for your children. It could be for your significant other. It could be for a friend. It could be for an employee. It could be for your boss. The power of not now is all about you. And I know what it's like to put myself second or third in that priority list and saying yes to everything that comes my way, whether it's from being an overachiever or wanting to have the success or just wanting to say yes to people for saying yes to people. And the pressure that I had as an entrepreneur in real estate, I always had the pressure of always being on, having to always be on. 10 o'clock at night, I'm on for my clients. Until I decided in my journey to raise my standards, that I would no longer tolerate the things that are causing stress, the things that aren't serving me, the things that maybe aren't stressful, but they're not adding value to my goals, right? That matters. And so I started to just practice putting myself first and being able to also incorporate the master of breathing, being able to breathe. Actually, that's a whole nother episode. And, the power of not now could also be that what are other people in your lives? Who else can you delegate some of the things that you're working on, right? It doesn't all have to lie on you. I had a hard time delegating things out because no one can do it like I can. How many of you believe that narrative, that false narrative? Really? everything that you're doing, no one else can do. Well, what would happen if they could? What would happen if you attempted to start small and delegate one small thing every week? You're going to delegate one small thing. You're going to train that person. You're going to micromanage them for 15 days until you felt good and comfortable, right? So sometimes the power of not now doesn't have to be the power of not now for you. It just means that the reason you're not able to move forward is because you're not delegating the things that maybe you don't have to do a pause on those things. Maybe you just have to delegate some of the other things. Or, right, maybe in this season, you have to have a pause on those things so that you're not overwhelming yourself. And maybe it's still on your burner. So just because you're pausing something that's really important to you doesn't mean that it needs to leave the burner. Unless you evaluate it, then you're like, okay, this is important to me. Remember the I and the you? It's important, but it's not urgent. So then where in your burner should that go? Because it's on your front burner, for example. And you're like, yeah, because I promised so-and-so. Well, does that work for you? Is that allowing you to get closer to your goals? Is that moving the needle for you? So it's just about evaluating what are your not nows? What are the things that need to become a back burner, but not off the burner, where you don't forget them, but they're still there, right? Because the planning of this podcast has never stopped. Even the studio that we created here has been very intentional. And all the other projects, my book is my baby. That became my priority, not the podcast. But now it's definitely go time. And I can't wait to have this journey with you. And I'm excited for you to join me on this journey. So I hope that you remember and that you can be mindful. What are the things that you could delegate? Who could you ask for help, right? That I remember even just date night. Like, I don't have time for date night. What is this? I have to go find someone to leave my kids with. I don't want to leave my kids. But right, you got to put the priorities that really matter. So when you're saying not now because I'm too busy or all this, sometimes that shouldn't be not now, right? It's just knowing what are the things you've paused in your life that perhaps shouldn't have been paused. And what are the things that you put on your front burner, you bit off more than you can chew, that maybe should be in the middle burner or the back burner. As I mentioned before, even date night, making time for your partner, if you're married or you're in a relationship, making time for that really matters. It's how you're dripping, how you're planting your seeds and allowing it to nourish. And I remember once upon a time, I wanted nothing to do with that. I'm like, I'm not leaving my kids, right? And so sometimes you just have to ask for help. Who can you talk to? Another friend that has kids and say, I'll watch your kids today. You watch mine next weekend, right? Being able to barter. There's always things that you can do to ensure that you're taking time for the things that matter to you. I don't care if it's you going to get a massage, right? Or you getting away for a day, that you're making time for you and pausing on the things that aren't serving you in this season. Because sometimes when we're not doing something and we pause, we feel like, oh, we forgot about that thing. Or, hey, I wasn't meant to do that. It's not that you're not meant to do that. It's just knowing that when you pause something, make sure it's intentional and that you know why you're pausing something. And it's really understanding when to push forward, when to push back. The timing is everything. And when you're going so fast, like I was once upon a time, and just going, oh, the podcast, this, the book, the speaking, I had to be in this state to go do a speaking thing, even virtually was exhausting. But still, it was awesome. I loved what I did. I love what I do. I love speaking. When I get a speaking engagement, I put my heart and soul. I love what I do. So no matter what it is that you're doing, if you love what you're doing, even the things that you love can create burnout. I can talk all day, every day. If someone wants to be on a podcast with me, I love the content that I'm pushing out for all of you guys in this podcast. That doesn't mean that I can't create burnout for myself. And it's knowing sometimes you have to step back and slow it down in order to then get the right speed that you need or that your goal requires you to have, right? And I think that has been a very hard lesson for me, and throwing myself into things has been my forte. And to be honest with you, I believe that I'll do that in the future sometimes. And it's just reminding myself. And the most important takeaways that I want you to take away from today's episode is understanding what are the pauses, the not nows in your life that perhaps you need to be able to pause and make time for you. You know what's best for you, and only you can determine that. And don't let anyone else determine that for you. Prioritize your mental health. It's the best thing, the asset that you have that lives with you, will carry you through life. you're going to die with this is your mind, your mental health. That gets you through the tough times. That gets you through the good times. That's the driver, is all on your mindset. If you have a mindset of anguish, what are you going to produce? If you have a mindset of possibilities, of excitement, of peace, what are you going to produce? And sometimes stepping back and having to reevaluate that is what you have to do. And it's okay if the time is not now. And I hope that you can prioritize your life so that when you're making things happen, you have a smile on your face, you're excited about what's to come, and you're ready to go. Or maybe there's a story that you have of the time that you bit off more than you could chew and you had to pause something. Or maybe you paused things that you're now ready to put into action. I'd love to hear your story if there's been a time that maybe you overcommitted yourself and bit off more than you could chew. Or maybe there's some things in your life that you're ready to now put in high gear that you have paused. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to add your comment. Would love to hear from you. Or maybe you're going to start practicing the power of not now. Maybe you haven't done that. Maybe you haven't paused anything, and maybe there are things that you are going to pause. We'd love to hear your comments, any feedback. You can also join me in the conversations on our social media at I am Diana Pagano. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this first episode on Make Things Happen podcast. I hope that you're not only feeling motivated, but also inspired and ready to execute on your dreams. I can't wait to see how you apply all that you learn here on this podcast, because I know that together we're going to make things happen. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Make sure you subscribe to keep up with all of our upcoming episodes. Please make sure to subscribe. I'll see you on my next episode where I'll be discussing the importance of habits which add value. I'm Diana Pagano, and that's all for this episode. Stay blessed and make sure to make things happen.